Good afternoon. My name is Tara Mears. I work with a company called First Response Safety Training. We teach classes in CPR, first aid, fire safety across Georgia and South Carolina. We've been teaching for over 22 years. We believe that training should be relevant, informative, fun. Research shows that people learn best when they're relaxed. And so our instructors strive to give classes stress-free and engaging. The main goal is that the students take information home and actually apply it in their own lives so that their family and friends, whoever they share the information with, is safe. So the purpose of this video is to discuss a few different fire behaviors with caregivers. Caregivers can be parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, older siblings if parents passed away and they become the caregiver for a younger sibling. So I want to address these different fire behaviors so that we kind of know where to go to get help if help is needed. If we have a child that seems to have a high interest in fires and it goes from like curiosity to something that we might be a little bit more concerned about. So I kind of want to start off with a little bit of information from the National Fire Protection Association Fire Analysis and Research Division. They did a overview from like 2007 to 2011 and found that majority of structure fires in homes are caused by youth misusing fires. Usually these 83% of these fires were started by males. 43% of structure fires in homes were started by children under the age of 6. And we'll discuss that in a little bit more detail later. But under the age of 6, they're more curious of the kind of mimicking behavior they might see from an adult. They don't understand that setting a fire can cause major devastation and loss of life and the thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars that it can cause. So they don't understand that at that age. Older children, ages 10 to 12, are more likely to start fires outside the home. It says about 38% of children between that age start fires outside of the home. They're a little bit more resourceful. They can get other materials, take it other places. Where younger children, it's usually matches or lighters that are left out and a child gets and they go to light a candle like I've done in the back. And they're going to help mommy by lighting a candle in the evenings. So that's more of that trying to be helpful, but also curiosity. And on average, there's 49,300 fires involving misuse every year and over $245 million worth of property damage. On average, it's like 80 civilian deaths and 860 civilian injuries. So it is something that needs to be discussed and give caregivers the information that they need and where they can go to get help when needed. So again, this is going to be addressed to caregivers, and be all ages. Our first age group that we're kind of worried about is under age 5. We know at this age, we kind of have to watch everything that they do because they're always curious and learning, and the way that they learn is to experiment. So these are considered simple fire setting cases. It's usually not intentional. It's accidental. Again, they don't have that ability to assess it and see that it can be a much more harmful situation. Then we get into problem fire setters. And these are a little bit more complex fire setting. They're usually set by youth, not motivated by curiosity. It's usually motivated by a life situation, stressors in their lives. So either from peer pressure or abuse, trying to get attention, things like that. So that's our problem fire setters. Attention-seeking fire setters are someone that we don't really think of them as being curious, or they're usually, it's a cry for help. There's abuse in their lives. It could be sexual abuse, it could be physical abuse, it could be peer pressure, bullying, different situations. So every child can be a little different. But these are dangerous situations where we need that intervention from more professional help to know exactly how to tackle this, because there again, it might be something that they don't know how to tell us, but they know if they start a fire that professionals come. So we definitely need to pay attention to those. Thrill-seeking or risk-taking fire setting, they're adolescents that usually are seeking that adrenaline rush. There's something about fire that they really like, and it excites them. Materials are usually easily accessible at this age. There's instruction videos on the internet, unfortunately. And a lot of times they will lie about it unless they are confronted with any type of punishment. Then they might admit to it. Up until then, though, they really don't want to admit to it. Delinquent fire setters are adolescents who set fire with an intent to destroy property, cover up a crime, might be a gang initiation. They might attempt to duplicate something that they see on social media. So as caregivers, we're constantly trying to protect them, and we're trying to limit what they can and what they can't see. A lot of times, these are common household ingredients that might be around the home. So they're not going out and purchasing anything, but it might be something that they see on social media, and they're trying to impress their friends or repost something so that it's actually they get more attention for it. The next one is where most people are really concerned, because this is something that kind of progresses into their adulthood, that pathological fire setting. They have a strong, unreasonable, planned, impossible to control. It might be a mental disorder. Usually they have a lack of remorse for their behavior. So we definitely want to identify what behavior that they have so that it is addressed properly. We don't want them to feel shamed. We don't want them to feel like that they're in huge trouble, but we definitely need to get to the bottom of what is causing them to set those fires. And that's where, we as caregivers redirect to a third party. We might need to go to the fire station. We might need to start some intervention program, and we need to know where to go to do that. So a couple of questions I have, if those are questions that might be in your mind, you probably have other questions. If you do, I encourage you to write them down. And that way, when you get to whoever can help you, if it's a fire department, pediatrician, mental health professional, you have those questions written down so that you can address them immediately. One question would be, what would be your first step in seeking help if you are concerned about a child's interest in fires? There are several websites that you can go to that gives you some initial information and maybe some resources. Obviously, like I said earlier, mental health professional, firefighter. But if you are wanting to find some information out, you can go to nfpa.org. Again, that is nfpa.org. And there's a public education link there, which provides resources for behavioral risk. There's teaching tools. If they're younger children under say 8 or 9, I think that's second grade, then learning not to burn things that, when we have campfires, this is only in a controlled area, only with an adult. But it teaches them positive teaching messages instead of making them feel like they're in trouble. There's also another one called Why Fires, YFIRES. And this one is great. There's a link on there that's called Find a Program for Caregivers. And if wherever you live, you can actually type in your city and state, and then it will bring up resources, contact information for you to call. It'll actually have the program name. It will have the contact administrator name and phone number. So that's a great resource to get sent in the right direction to get help. There's also Another one that is called Sean's Story, SEANS-story.org. And this one gives a lot more information for misuse of fires. There's toolkits on here. Again, there's resources. It really helps us as caregivers know, okay, what's curious, what's not, and then it kind of points us in the right direction for the right education and the right training. So that's a great resource as well. So another question, what's an example of teaching a young child about fire safety? Main thing with young children is we teach them what we want them to do instead of what we don't want them to do. We've learned, if we haven't, that children don't usually hear the word don't. So if you say, don't touch that, that's hot. Don't touch matches and lighters. All they hear is touch matches and lighters. So we need to be careful not to say don't. Tell them what we want them to do. For instance, if you see matches or lighters, tell an adult. If you, hot things burn. That way they know what it does, not just that it's hot. And very young children don't always know exactly what hot is because they might not have ever touched anything that's hot. So, we don't want to teach them by touching something that's hot. But if you do like a little experiment that kind of feel warm versus cold, then they understand that warm can cause some, that doesn't feel well. I don't want to feel that. So tools versus toys, to know that they don't play with certain things, that those are for adults only. Now, last thing, what can caregivers do to prevent children from having access to fire igniters? Keep matches and lighters out of the reach of children. Yes, we can put them up high above the microwave there, but children like to climb, and that puts them at a risk for falling and injuring themselves as well. But we really want to make sure that we put things away so that children cannot get to them, to protect them, because we know at that age that they don't understand that they can get hurt, they can burn the house down. We need to be a good example. If we're walking around lighting candles, here's my lighter. So if I go around every night and I take this lighter and I light all the candles to a young child, they think they're helping, and they're going to go around and light the candles in the evening to be helpful, and they like the smell. They don't understand that when to turn this off, and it can catch things on fire along the way. So again, a lot of these things have safety devices on them to where they have to push two things at once to make sure that it comes on, but not everything does. There's a lot of lighters that are little novelty, they look like toys, and they don't have those same safety features on there. So if you're a collector of those type of things and a child gets a hold of that, it's easy for them to light something on fire. So again, be a good example, walk the walk, talk the talk. We don't set fires outside and just watch things burn. We don't want them to do that, so let's not do that ourselves. So again, the websites that we talked about, as caregivers, we definitely want to make sure that we are providing a child as much safety and supervision as possible. We want to make sure that we are teaching them what they need to know. And sometimes we need teaching too. Sometimes as caregivers, we need help. So we need to make sure that if we need help, ask for help. Don't feel ashamed. Don't feel like that child's going to be in trouble or you're going to go to jail. The main goal is that everyone is safe, and we catch something early. If it's a certain behavior and we can get to the bottom of it when they're young, then we have the right education and the right intervention in place so that they will learn right from wrong and not feel like they're getting in trouble for it. So I really hope this video was helpful. As a caregiver, I'm a mother of 3. I have a grandchild, and I have taught this information to all of my children over the years. One thing I was told when I had my first child is to stay one step ahead of them. And I didn't really understand what that meant until my child was older and getting into everything, and I was constantly running around making sure that the candles weren't sitting out where they could put their hands in it, make sure things weren't hot when I was giving it to them, because they don't know. And we constantly feel like we are one step ahead of them or they're one step ahead of us. And prevention, supervision is the best prevention for injuries. And, we have our cell phones. We want to make sure that children know how to call 911 if there's a fire emergency or someone is injured. We need to make sure that they actually know how to dial 911 and speak to somebody on the phone. It's one thing to hit 911, but when somebody comes on the phone, for them to be like, I have an emergency, my mommy's hurt or my grandma's hurt. So they need to make sure that they know how to do that as well. So again, I hope this information was helpful, and reach out to help if you need it, and have a great evening.